Good evening, everyone. Can I please have a motion and a second to reconvene the public meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence to honor our servicemen and women?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Iannatelli,
Present.
Mrs. DiLorenzo,
Present.
Dr. Centermore,
Present.
Mrs. Mallon,
Present.
Mr. Murphy, Mr. Kolehifar,
Here.
Mrs. Poppy,
Present.
Mr. Hauser.
Present.
Thank you.
Can I please get a motion and a second to accept the minutes of the September 28, 2023 meeting?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So tonight, we have a special performance. We have our, we have a musical performance here. Mr. Malafonte, I will give you the floor.
Thank you very much. So in honor of School Board Appreciation Week, we'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your support and for our students in our program and for serving on our school board. As a token of our appreciation, we have a few things for you this evening. You have gifts that were made from our sculpting students from the high school. Wonderful ceramics and sculpting program here in our district. And I'd like to recognize the following students directly for making these gifts for you this evening. Darlene Mejia-Reyes, Habiba Mohammed, Samantha O'Donnell, Leila Vargas de Jesus, and Drew DeCiano. We have a special performance from one of our high school vocal ensemble, Long Island Voices, under the direction of Mr. James Nagel.
We hope you enjoy it.
$525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments so dear, 525,600 minutes. How do you measure our year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, in laughter, in strife. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year in life? How about love? How about love? How about love? Measuring love. Seasons of love.
she learns more times than he cried. In bridges he burns all the way that she died.
The story never ends. Let's celebrate the memory of life of Christ. Remember that. Remember that. Remember that. Measuring seasons of love, seasons of love, seasons of love, seasons of seasons of
That was amazing. You guys were fantastic. And thank you to the art students for our gifts also. We do have some certificates of recognition to give out. Dr. Senamore? Where is he? Where did he go?
First off, that was incredible. We have the most amazing and talented kids on the planet. Great staff to work with them as well. Ms. Malfronte, thank you, and how about another round of applause for our kids? Continuing that theme of incredible, amazingly talented kids, we want to now recognize our all-state, all-county student musicians. So, you want to do the whole board? Do the whole board? Just, you got it.
Amazing.
So coming up in November, we have our SCMEA, or Suffolk County Music Educators Association, is having their annual Day of Jazz, which features special performing ensembles comprised of students from all of Suffolk County. I would like to recognize the following students who went through the audition process last year, were nominated by the teachers, and have been chosen to be members of these all-county jazz groups. So in the all-county instrumental jazz ensemble, we have Jessica Batanjo, Paul Hein, Raleigh Lavata, Xavier Vargas. You guys can come on up, please. And for the all-county advanced vocal jazz ensemble is and Natalie Maripon Escobar.
Can we guys come back for a picture?
Yes, please.
We're going to do some
Also coming up in this month, next month, we have the New York State Council of Administrators of Music Education, or NISCAE. We're having their annual all-county concert for select 11th and 12th graders, students. These students performed their NISBA solo last spring and were nominated by the teachers and were selected by the committee. So the following NISCAE all-county students, please come up when I call your name. Andrew Rakowski in mixed choir. Alexander Casalis in orchestra. Ava Ross in double choir. Jack Dowdell, mixed choir. Adam Aurelio, mixed chorus. Joseph Velez, orchestra. Catherine Malone, mixed chorus. Julia Locksmith, mixed chorus. Natalie Mariquin, mixed chorus. Alexander Hoffman in band. Matthew Escobar for mixed chorus. Mia Lang for mixed chorus. William Ball for band. Gianna Stecker for mixed chorus. Dakota Ramos for mixed chorus. Alyssa Feldman in band. And Liliana Bosconi, treble choir. So you all come up, please. And for our last recognition, the New York State School Music Association, the NISBA, holds their conference in Rochester every year, which features performing ensembles comprised of the best musicians in the state. Last spring, thousands of sophomores and juniors from across the state of New York prepared all-state evaluations in hopes of being selected. There were 600 students chosen throughout the state to participate this year, and I'm honored to say that we have 4 students from our high school who were selected to perform in Rochester this upcoming December. For NISBA all-state selection, we have Alexandra Casonis in symphonic band. Alyssa Feldman for symphonic band. Andrew Rakowski in mixed chorus. And Natalie Mariquin Escobar for mixed chorus. Come on up. We're very proud of our students who have been invited to participate for these prestigious ensembles. I know they will represent Connecticut well at these festivals. So once again, thank you all for giving them this opportunity and for giving me the opportunity to acknowledge their artistic and musical talent of all the students we have and that they share with us each day. On behalf of all the art and music teachers, I'd like to share congratulations to all of our students. We are very proud of them and we look forward to seeing our students continue to impress us with their talents and creativity throughout the school year. So thank you, and thank you for your support.
Have a good night. Congratulations again, everyone.
Thank you.
So I'm going to call for a motion and a second to suspend the business meeting and convene the audit committee meeting. Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So we have our external audit report presented by Jill Sanders of Cullen and Danowski.
Good evening to the Board of Education and the administration and community. I thought everyone came to hear my presentation. I'm a little disappointed. It's always very difficult to follow the students, so that was a great presentation for your auditor to see. Anyway, I'm here to make the annual audit report, and it's a positive report. We recently completed our audit on October 19th, and the packet of documents that you have in front of you are the conclusion of what that audit process was. The first large document is the actual financial statement, so it gives the financial transactions for the year. There are two ways that we report. We report the way the books and records are maintained by the school district on the modified accrual basis of accounting. And so when you put your operating budget together, this is the financial statement presentation that follows that. There's another basis of presentation that's included in accordance with the standards that are promulgated, and it's an accrual basis financial statement. And I just wanted to point your attention to that because it's a little misleading from a financial reporting standpoint. What I'm referring to is pages 19 and 20 in the larger document. Okay. First, our report's unmodified except with respect to the extra classroom activity funds, so you get the highest level of assurance that the financial statements are fairly presented. On pages 19 and 20, which is a required presentation, you'll notice that the numbers are a little unusual. If you look at the second number from the bottom, the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention, it shows that there's a deficit and it's a very large number. Obviously, this is not your financial operations on the modified accrual basis, the way that you keep your books and records. This is a financial presentation, as I mentioned, under GASB statement number 34. So this particular presentation, information only, has every liability that the school district has, whether it's due to be paid next year or 10 years from now, okay, 20 years from now. So these are unfunded liabilities. You provide for them every year within your budget based upon the maturity of when they may take place, such as the bonds, the energy performance contract. But in case someone picks up your financial statement in the community, I wanted to make you aware of the fact that this is a reporting model. So that big number, that $300,000 deficit number, your auditor expects to see a big deficit because there is a piece of the retirement system that we're reporting. There's a liability for the school district. There's other post-employment benefits which are required to be presented. You can see that's a $300,000 number. And these are actuarial-driven numbers, but not to be concerned because, as we know, and I said before, you are providing for the proper amounts within your budget each year. The financial statements that mirror the activity that you're interested in seeing are going to be on pages 21 and 23. And on pages 21 and 23, since you have a discrete set of accounting records by fund, 21 will capture the assets, liabilities, and the difference between that is your fund equity or your total fund balance. The general fund mirrors the results of your operating budget at the end of the year so that you could see you're in a good position. You have assets in excess of liabilities, which is where you want to be. And you want to be there because you're using part of that net result to fund the subsequent year's budget, as you know. You appropriate fund balance and you appropriate reserves. And the other funds are discrete funds. Special aid fund holds grants that the district receives, and the district's very aggressive in trying to get whatever grant funding they can to support their educational programs. You know you have a food service fund, and so that's the culmination of the results for the year. The debt service fund, just as a reminder, that's where the monies go to pay the debt service during the year. You have bonds, you have energy performance contract commitments that you have. The capital projects fund, the district has lots of activity in the capital projects fund, as you know. You have the old bond issue, you have the current bond issue, which is approximately $60 million. You have the capital reserve. So you're using all of these mechanisms to be able to take care of the facility needs that you have, and that's working out very successfully. You can see some details of that in the latter part of the financial statement. There's a schedule by project. There's an extra classroom activity fund presentation, which the state requires us to include, even though it's not really part of business operations. The scholarship funds, those that are expendable, and those that are non-expendable, which are in the permanent fund. So this is really the better indicator, okay, as to where your books and records ended up for the year. And on page 23, this is actually the financial activity for the year. So you could see by fund, there's revenues and expenditures. Okay, and there's a net, the third row from the bottom, and that's your change for the year, okay? And so where you see that in the general fund there's a little bit of a shortfall, you appropriate fund balance because you know there's going to be a shortfall. So that's a planned use of expenditures over and above revenues supported by appropriated reserves and appropriated fund balance. So I just wanted to go over the differences in the two sets of financial statements in case you delve deeper and you see that there's a difference between the numbers. And there's reconciliation pages between the two sets of financial statements, which follow on pages 24 and 22. The other three documents, the next one that you have in your packet, it's a communication to the Board of Governance under something called AUC 260. And this is where we lay out for the board if there were any difficulties encountered in performing the audit. There were none. If there were any transactions that were presented which lacked guidance, there were none that were indicated in our audit. All significant transactions are included in these financial statements. Any adjustments that we proposed, and we would propose adjustments during the course of the audit, the district is very good with going ahead and taking those adjusting journal entries and posting them into their books and records. And so the document that they file with the state, which is an ST3 document, mirrors up with the audited financial statement figures. So you have that's the next document in your packet. I think the document after that is a management letter. So we talked at the planning meeting about the internal control structure. The district has a really good internal control structure in place. As a result of our audit, we bring to the board's attention things that we might find. Improvements. There's nothing significant here. We know there's no significant deficiencies. There's no material weaknesses. So these are real big breaks in the internal control structure. There's some suggestions as to carryover comments from last year. I think the corrective action plan that your assistant superintendent for business is going to go ahead and submit addresses the one with respect to preschool, and probably will also address the one with respect to outstanding checks. The preschool one has to do with a subsequent year's budget and staffing. Okay, so it takes a little bit of time after the comment. It has to do with whether or not you can operate the pre-K program, and this is pre-K for special education purposes, at a break even. And it's very difficult, as we know, and it has a lot to do with staffing, and the district's been looking at the staffing and looking at the services that are required to deliver the best educational program. And so I think this will be somewhat corrected and in 24, because this is the budget year where it's going to be implemented. The outstanding checks is something that can be this communication to people. There's a few checks that were written and they have not been negotiated. And so it's a matter of finding the individuals and communicating with them that there's few checks. We had a current year comment. It had to do with the scholarships. You have some that are expendable and some that are non-expendable. And that has to do with whenever someone makes a donation, what their wishes are. So it has to do with the accounting for the non-expendable. But all in all, as I mentioned, no significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses. These are some procedural suggestions in order to shore up those internal controls even more. The last document in your packet is a report on the extra classroom activity funds. And this, as you recall, is by activity at each of the buildings, opening cash balance, the receipts and the disbursements, and the close at the end of the year. So we audit from the central treasurer's activity up. We sample disbursements, we sample receipts to make sure that there's appropriate documentation, that there's involvement by the students, because this is supposed to be a student-run program. And so all of that is good. Where we have difficulty and we have the qualification, and this is the same qualification for almost every school district in New York State, is we can't audit at the inception of the transaction. What does that mean? Students are really good at fundraising, right? There's car washes, there's bake sales, there's all these types of things in order to support the activities. As an auditor, if I don't know who bought that baked product, if there's not a record, and there typically isn't, okay, because there's transactions that are taking place. If there's a car wash, you're not going to necessarily know that I paid for that particular car wash. I can't audit at the inception, and so there's a qualification. Does not mean that there's not controls from the extra classroom treasurer up, okay? And it does not mean that there's not controls at the student level. It's just that evidence, okay, is not available for us to take a look at. So that's my report for this evening.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
In your report, you had mentioned that you noted certain opportunities for strengthening internal controls and operating efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
You said that the suggestions were concerning those matters. Can you give an example?
Sure. So those were, if you turn the next page, those were the three things that I had noted. So this was the pre-K.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I was not clear before. Okay, so this is the pre-K, being able to fund for the program or make adjustments with respect to how the services are delivered, whether it's staffing, whether it's something else within the supplies that are purchased for the program. And this is the comment that it's very difficult because what happens is you get a particular rate that's set by the state, and the rate is capped at an increase. And so what happens, as we know, salaries increase at a level, supplies increase at a level, and especially over the last number of years, those increases are greater than the reimbursement rate increase from New York State. And so that's why there's a gap. And so the district's looking at each of the classrooms, because there's different classrooms within the program as far as configuration of the students and the teachers and the aides, and seeing where they might be able to generate some additional savings so that they can close that gap. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Anybody else? Thank you, Ms. Sanders.
Thank you. I wanted to thank Mr. Hauser, Mrs. DeSico, and the rest of the staff for their cooperation.
Can I please have a motion and a second to adjourn the audit committee and reconvene the business meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Can I please have a motion and a second to accept the 2022-2023 external audit report as presented?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Our superintendent's update, Dr. Sinamore.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. This is Board of Education Recognition Week, and I can speak from a personal standpoint, having my father in another school district, having served over 30 years on a school board. So I have tremendous firsthand appreciation for the volunteerism and the service that occurs with our board trustees. So on behalf of our board trustees, in recognition of your service and recognition of this week, I've made a donation to our high school's food pantry in your honor, and I want to thank all of our board members for your continued service to the children and community of Connecticut.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you are all very welcome. So, lot to report. We recently had a transportation safety committee meeting with various representatives, including some board representation, and we were reviewing several things, but specifically something that was brought up at a previous board meeting with regards to the current district practice with kindergarten and first grade students, and requiring that there be a designee from the family at the bus stop. And so the committee took a look at this, and the committee agreed that effective Monday, December 4th, that the district practice would expand from kindergarten and first grade to kindergarten first and second grade, requiring that a family have a designee at the bus stop in order for the child to be let off. However, we may have some second grade parents that are comfortable, and they can certainly, as part of this form that's being developed, they could opt to have their child be released even if there is not a designee, since some families have already been accustomed to doing so. This form is being developed with our transportation office, and during the month of November, we'll take the whole month to communicate this. I know Mr. Hauser and transportation are looking to do school messengers and other communications, so this can be communicated, the form can go out and then be received, and we're looking at a Monday, December 4th implementation. In terms of grades 3, 4, and 5, a new and separate form is being created for the next school year. That's the 2024-25 school year. This will require all parents to sign off acknowledging that their third, fourth, or fifth grader will be dropped off at a bus stop, even if there is no designee. However, as is the current practice, if any family does not want their third, fourth, or fifth grader to be dropped off without a designee, then, those children will also be returned to the school. So I'll repeat, in terms of second graders, we're looking at a Monday, December 4th implementation, taking the month of November to communicate this, get forms out. And in terms of the older elementary grades, and just, this awareness component, so all parents are aware, that piece will be for the subsequent school year, and we'll look to communicate that probably in June prior to the closure of this current school year. Questions on that? Okay. This is also the district-wide United We Stand Drug-Free Ribbon Week. There are many wonderful activities occurring in all of our schools. I know we have our high school students here. I'll let them, I won't steal their thunder. I'll make a few references to some high school things during my report, but I'll let them provide some further detail. And, we appreciate all those efforts. We appreciate the efforts of our student services department. And of course, this district has always been a district that is big in mental health, positive, productive decision-making, and of course, saying no to, things such as drugs. We've had some outstanding events over the last several weeks. High school student ambassadors being part of the ISLP Ambassador Program. We've had induction ceremonies at OBMS with Tri-M. Our high school just performed the marching band at the Newsday Festival at Mitchell Field last week. And just similar to our student musicians who performed here tonight, just incredible, amazing. They did the national anthem. The local Bohemia Fire Department gave them a large field flag to unfold, and it was just a breathtaking moment and certainly a moment of pride for our entire community. Thank you to the fire department for the use of that flag. We have Ronkonkoma Tri-M Honor Society and high school National Honor Society induction ceremonies coming up. Mother Nature was not the most cooperative. Unfortunately, we didn't get the parade in, but thanks to the efforts of our high school advisors, staff administration, they made some modifications, and the pep rally and the floats and the skits all occurred. It was amazing. Even myself, the cabinet, the Board of Education, we were even invited into the festivities, which was a lot of fun. And I think one of our best events might have been the tug of war. Okay. So thank you to everybody, and again, our high school students will speak in greater detail to that. Our athletic teams, they continue to shine. We have a number of teams, have already started the playoffs, so we'll have playoff games to come. I know that our girls volleyball team advanced last night. Our boys soccer team advanced today. Again, we're very proud. And what's also really nice is that we've been honoring our seniors throughout with all the events. And what's really cool, and it speaks to the class and character of Connecticut, is that at some of our senior nights, we even honor the seniors on the other team. I've never seen that before, and I've worked in several districts, and that to me is one of those things that makes me very proud. And I know that at Friday night's football game, we'll be honoring our seniors for marching band and flag color guard. So that's very exciting. A ton of fundraising activities have been going on throughout the district. We had a really cool one yesterday at the local Mickey D's, where our OBMS PTA sponsored a MIC teacher night, and we had staff and administrators there serving. It was just very cool, and it speaks to how we look to foster community engagement and partnerships. Speaking of partnerships, parent-teacher conferences are occurring, and this is so critical. This partnership between the home and the school is vital. Please make sure you're checking the calendar for when your child's conferences are. It's that time of year. We have pumpkin patches, trunk or treats. The high school has a safe Halloween coming up, which I'm looking forward to. That'll be my first experience. So with regards to Halloween, obviously we wish everyone to have a very enjoyable Halloween. Keep it safe. And then soon after Halloween, we get into a more serious holiday, one that is near and dear to me. as a son of a Vietnam combat veteran, Veterans Day is a very special holiday, and it's an opportunity for us, and we do a great job in this district in Connecticut with honoring the service and the sacrifice of our brave men and women in all of our armed forces. You know, it's a reminder of how precious our safety, security, and freedom is. And again, I know all of our buildings do beautiful things, including a very special ceremony over at Ronkonkoma Middle School. As always, I want to thank our SEPTA, PTA, PTSA, Auburn Athletic Boosters, incredible parent organizations, and volunteerism. Thank you. That is your update.
Thank you, Dr. Sonnemore. Do we have student government?
There's a little button. If you could just press it at the base of the microphone. Thank you.
The school and the community united forces, and we had a very good homecoming week. Spirit Week started off good. Many people participated in the week. Pep rally was unfortunately rained out, which everyone was sad for, and moved to the Thursday, and we found out on Wednesday. A day before it was planned, everyone loved their floats and the skits that were presented on very short notice. The homecoming game was good, and Connecticut pride was definitely shown. The homecoming dance, which was the first time in many years, was good. Over 280 people showed up, and that was surprising. I was there taking photos, and everyone had a blast, and there was not one complaint. Everyone there was truly dressed to impress.
Rho Kappa has their Honor Society induction this Thursday for all new members.
National Honor Society is hosting a book drive for any and all books that are willing to be donated to enhance education and support children's hospitals, homeless shelters, and special education schools.
Anti-Bullying Club is hosting a social hour Wednesday for all the new students. The social hour is Halloween themed with Halloween crafts and activities.
This Saturday, October 28th, is our high school Safe Halloween. It is from 12 to 2 at the high school. Admission is $5 with a non-perishable item per child. This event kicks off our Thanksgiving food drive.
As you know, all of our sports teams have been very successful this season, and most teams have made the playoffs.
Model UN will be hosting a Applebee's Flapjack fundraiser November 12th from 8 to 10 a.m. Thank you.
I have one quick question. The book drive, where is that? Can you give everybody the dates and the locations where they can drop the books off?
I think that was,
I will pull up
This
a
is-
flyer right now.
is that for the English Honor Society?
No, that
It
one
is.
just ended.
That just
Oh,
ended.
this is,
It was supposed to end on the 31st. They opted to.
They ended it
end
today.
sooner and asked that they
so
send
is
them
this
to
a
the
new one?
library.
But from
It's on
National,
their
you said
website.
National Honor Society. Is this National English Honor Society?
So
Are you talking
the
about, or-
flyer I have says National English Honor Society presents NEHS book drive. Donate all books, all genres, all ages, all types to local children's hospitals, homeless shelters, and special education schools. The last day to donate is November 1st. See all details below.
Okay.
So I think it's a new one, if I may be wrong, but I could check with the girl that does it and figure
yeah,
out.
that would be great, because I think that the National English Honor Society just announced something today.
Just
It's
canceled
on
it.
social media that they ended it early today. So if there's a new one and you have new dates, that would be great to get that out to the community.
I will speak to one of the officers that is in that club and get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our Board of Ed topics, Robert's Rules, Jackie Napolitano Furno.
Dr. Santamore, have you come up with any ideas or times when we can have not a board retreat, but more of a board training for Robert's Rules and Open Meetings Law? This Board of Ed is extremely inexperienced, and there's a lot of open meetings law that's not being followed, a lot of Robert's Rules that's not being followed. When I was on the board with Mrs. Kennedy, Mrs. Augulis, and Mrs. Panico, they were well informed on these items. It is excellent. I think that it would behoove us all to have a refresher on Robert's Rules and Open Meetings Law.
So, absolutely, that can be provided. We do have, through Gercio and Gercio, council that comes at least the first meeting of the month. Council does meet in executive session. And so what we can do, I can coordinate with the board president, is we can coordinate a time when we could start exec, and we could, make that the beginning part of exec session for any kind of, board-related training. Certainly if Robert's Rule of Order was a topic of training choice.
Sure, that sounds great. Even a separate date, because this could probably take a couple hours.
I believe that Garcia and Garcia's was already offered to do this several times, and we just haven't done anything, because I do recall asking for this. This is now probably the third time that I've asked. It's just that now I'm asking during board discussions.
They have offered, and they've presented some of the rules during some of our executives, but yeah, this would definitely be something to look into, Dr. Centimore, to have a separate meeting about.
So what we could do is myself, Ms. Kemp, the district clerk, we could survey the board in terms of some dates. I don't know if you want looking before Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving, to see where we could add an exec session for the purpose of this type of training.
Thank you. Survey policy, Ms. Napolitano-Furno.
I wanted to find out what was the end result with a survey policy. Do we have a procedure in place for parents to opt out of surveys or lessons that may not be necessary to improve on any test scores of any kind in any of our school buildings? And if so, can you provide a copy, please?
So right now, through our mental health committee, there are multiple surveys that are being actively vetted. I believe the next meeting of that committee is November, it's a virtual evening meeting, it's November 2nd. Does that sound right for anyone who sits on that committee? And so the two surveys that committee are vetting, they would absolutely have the parent opt-out component. One is a New York State Department of Health tobacco survey, which would be a random survey to several 6th, 7th, 8th grade classes. So that's one survey, and that would have a parent opt-out component. Another one is a prevention survey that is both middle level and high school level. That is also going to be further vetted. That too would have a parental opt-out component, and that would be more geared towards 7 through 12. In terms of individual lessons, guidance has been given to directors, to work with staff to provide support in terms of any type of an instructional tool. And it's not just a survey. I know a survey theme has come up, but it's not just that. It's about, assisting teachers with individual lessons and individual tools. A lot of times it's technology related. And certainly that conversation, correct, Ms. Poppy, has come up with the directors to, you can chime in on that one.
Sure. So the curriculum directors district-wide are always ready to support teachers with lesson plannings if there are questions or any concerns that a teacher has, regarding materials that they plan to use for a lesson. They can certainly access the curriculum directors, and dialogue will ensue from there.
Great, thank you. CRT, Ms. Napolitano-Furno.
So that's actually going to be tied into, you can just put it all together or cross it all off. CRT, transparency in education and censoring. So there is a situation where we are trying to find a textbook for our AP U.S. World History. And in fact, the book, several top administrators have said, is opinionated in the way it's written. It doesn't just hit any one side. It actually wrote poorly about President Bush, President Obama, President Clinton, President Trump. It was pretty brutal, the last 100 pages. I had looked into it. I respect that we give academic freedom to our classrooms, but I also have an issue when things that we are teaching are not actually being taught for the actual test. I believe that some of it, by being told by administrators, you know, Jackie, we just won't use the last 100 pages, or we just won't, that's censoring. I'm not gonna censor the book. Why pick that book then? The transparency in education is, I really feel like this should be like a digital copy that parents and people can see so they understand. And what I don't understand is the last book that was the same copy, is there a reason why are we getting a new book, I understand, to move into the new after 9/11? Because I know the last book, when I looked at it, it only went to 9/11. But the problem with this book is from 9/11 to the present is where it's the most opinionated.
So let me start, and then Ms. Poppy, I'm going to pass the baton so you can kind of get into the more of the nitty gritty. So a lot to unpack there. I'll just start with censorship. So in this AP class, they are highly unlikely through the natural curriculum to cover the end of the book anyway. So it's not like we would normally cover it, but we're purposely not, because we just don't want to deal with this material. So that's not the case. So, you know, take the censorship piece and we can cross that out. That's not the case. So this particular book, which, you know, we're vetting, and there is a textbook vetting process, and absolutely that process must and it does include teacher input. They're the ones in the trenches. They're the ones that teach this. They're the professionals. We are relying on their professionalism. I will say this, that in the year 2023, publishing it's not an issue of teaching. It's an issue of publishing in terms of, you know, you talk about opinionated. Some might use the word sensationalism. Some people might say, and I'm a social studies teacher by trade, this kills me. Oh, social studies is boring. And so we got to, it kills me to hear that. So we got to hook people. So that's why we got to make it more exciting to read. And so we throw in some opinions. And to your point, it's all over the place. It's not like it's one-sided, you know, like we're going to be north and the South is going to be angry at us, or we're going to be East and the West is going to be angry at us. It's opinionated or it's sensationalized all over. And that's there. I will touch a little bit on curriculum and take the baton. Our teachers feel, and they did vet with their department a number of texts. They feel that the AP assessment has evolved, and that they feel like this particular text, while it has some opinions and some sensationalism, it best prepares our kids for what they're going to have on that assessment. We also have students that are going to take the 11th grade U.S. History Regents, and they also feel like this will help address that. There is some content that is post 9/11, and I'm going to take this baton now, Ms. Poppy, and hand it down the curriculum way.
I'll just continue your statement, Dr. Centimore. So the U.S. History Regents does address, you know, post 9/11 history, more contemporary history. And so there is that factor where, you know, those last pages wouldn't necessarily be ignored because the students are required to prepare for that assessment at the end of the school year.
Well, then there's a question in itself. When was the last time the AP exam changed? Because this book clearly is only up to 9/11, the one that's in the classrooms right now. So are we saying that the last 100 pages that are not in the book they're currently using is on the test? Because I've heard mixed thoughts on that, which was, no, Jackie, the old book was fine because the old book is what's on the AP exam. So
Correct.
So if the last 100 pages is not necessary, but we're getting a new book, and then when I heard that the ticket price, and I could have been wrong, what I think I heard yesterday, was $50,000 for 200 books.
So a couple of corrections.
That seems like a lot.
There. Couple of corrections there. So right now we're looking at a fleet of textbooks that were purchased around 2002. So they are approximately 20 years old. Currently, we don't have enough textbooks to be able to hand to one one textbook to every student who is enrolled in the course. And so we have class sets and we're working with what we have inventory-wise in order to spread their availability to students. These books are used as an instructional resource. We've discussed that they are not necessarily used as a page turner, and I'm explaining that phrase by saying that we're not going through chapter by chapter. They are used in some instances in order to support students' learning, that they have a resource at home that they can consult if a specific topic requires clarification. But at this time, we do not have enough text to send home. And so that was part of the impetus for making the purchase. We're also looking at 20-year-old textbooks that have seen better days in many instances, right? So there are those pieces. In terms of what's in the existing edition of the American Pageant that we're using currently, and its overlap and overlay into the brand new edition that we're seeking to purchase, we were able to make some alignment between, especially that 2001 era where the former textbook ended and the newer textbook kind of continues on. So the language is actually similar. You've got those charged examples that Dr. Centimore was talking about. And I think those charged examples of language use just continue through the conclusion of this brand new edition that we're seeking to purchase. We did some quoting out of prices in terms of knowing exactly what the costs involved would be. And for 200 volumes, I'm happy to report that the price tag is lower significantly than what we thought it would be. We're looking at about $36,000 as opposed to $50,000. The textbooks cost approximately $177 a piece. And we're looking at that investment as a long-term investment. We did consider obtaining digital copies of the textbooks for students. However, there's an annual fee associated with any digital copies of textbooks that we have concerns about maintaining into the future. So you pay a per student price for the ability to use that textbook online, and that's a yearly expense that we would have to plan for.
So, but yesterday, yesterday it was I was misinformed because I was told by you guys it was 50,000 yesterday.
We thought that was the number that we were looking at, and the price quote was revised, went to the company, came back with the bottom line of $35,500.
Now also, how many students are taking this course as opposed to 20 years ago, 10 years ago? I'm only asking because while I noticed, and I thought I had it on me, I did have it, I saw it earlier today, from last year, I had asked for and I think Mr. Khalifar was the one that did it for me, for the whole board, was the assessment of the enrollment, how it has decreased. Somebody did it where it looked very nice, it was a decreased enrollment. Now, the one I'm looking for has the line on it, decreased enrollment, meaning that we had over 6,000 students at one time at the top. And when I was looking at it, the projected, we're down under 2,000 students in the next 5 years. But right now, we're down, I want to say 1,400, I believe it was, students on that paper.
I don't recall that.
You might not have made it. I have it. It's from last year.
It's a BOCES report.
Oh, is it the BOCES report? Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
You're talking high school enrollment.
High school enrollment, and it was decreased substantially from when they had started it. And I wish I had it in front of me because I had the dates and everything ready for you. I'll bring it the next time just to show you what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, with that much decrease in enrollment, are we seeing a decrease of enrollment in the class, or are we seeing that that class itself is being taken more? And if you can't answer, because I know this is a new question, by all means, we can go over it again next meeting, it's fine.
I do have some data that I can share publicly, but it may not be exact to the number of students who are enrolled in the class, because not every student necessarily writes the exam when they're enrolled in the class. But I do have the number of exams that were written for the past 5 years, and those numbers have stayed relatively consistent. So for instance, in 2019, we had 164 students write. In 2020, which was an anomaly, I'm going to say it that way, because the AP exams are delivered, after our closure, and this occurred during the closure period, we still had 145 students who chose to write the exam that year. In 2021, 162, 2022, 167, and in 2023, 166. So these are 11th grade students, and this does represent a good portion, a good percentage of the class. I'd have to go back and look at specific course enrollments to have the true numbers, but those are the numbers of exams that have been written.
Well, the reason I'm saying that is because we don't have enough textbooks from the previous. And my question would be, wouldn't we have ordered enough back then? And now we have less students in enrollment in itself. If we went back 20 years, you're talking about at least 1,400 less students in the high school in general. So even if we said, 50 kids less in a class in that enrollment, or 30, I'm just saying, where did all these, I understand textbooks get broken, textbooks get kept, I understand that. But I'm saying, did we always have this kind of, so we're gonna order 200, is that what we're ordering?
We're seeking 200. We're seeking to order 200 to accommodate, I think, probably what happens in the last 20 years, right? So textbooks go through their share of wear and tear, whether the teacher that year had chosen them to be transported back and forth between home and school, if they were left at home. But we do have an experience that is similar across every subject area every year, where textbooks don't come back, they're damaged, they're unusable. And so I am assuming that our stock over the past 20 years has diminished. The exact numbers I don't have a record of to speak to.
Christina, you read the numbers, but those are the numbers of kids who actually took the AP test. That is not who is enrolled in the class, just because I know a lot of kids opt out of the AP. So the number actually is larger than what you're saying.
That's correct, April.
And also, when I came to read the book and speak to you and Mr. Kassain, the new book has material that's needed for this year's Regents, which the old book doesn't currently have.
That's correct. So the Regents does go through the contemporary era. So students will face questions, post this current textbook that we currently own covers, right? So that covers through September 11th. 2001, and it does not account for the more modern era.
So they will be using then, see, this is where I said it gets dicey. Because I was told yesterday they won't be using it, and now I'm being told they will be using it. And the only reason I'm saying this is because it really does put a negative spin on at least, and I say this, at least 4 presidents. And when I say negative spin, you and I read an excerpt from President Clinton that is totally wrong to even be in that book. There's no purpose for it, and there's no purpose for it to be swayed so poorly. Regardless what you think of any president of the United States, they are still the president of the United States. History should still be factual, not opinionated. That's what I would think. Regardless which president we're talking about, but we actually were looking at President Clinton, and I didn't think it was fair what was written.
I just want to point out, because the entire board got to look at the book and find out the facts, that 39 other districts on Long Island also have the same book for the AP U.S. History class. I also would like to point out that it is College Board approved, and that when I asked the question of any of the books that were vetted, were they written differently? The answer is no, that this is maybe the new type of writing, as Dr. Centimore pointed out, the sensationalism, that there wasn't a book that didn't present it this way.
I was actually told that Henrietta's book was 100 times worse. That's why when we're all in a room differently, I heard it was
That's
worse.
what I'm saying, worse,
And
but not,
how many
nothing
districts,
is better.
when we talk about 39 districts, because I always find this, and again, sometimes a little bit amusing, that we always get, these are how many districts are we talking about in total on Long Island?
I believe there are 124 school districts on
So
Long Island.
124 school districts and 39, so who do the other 2/3 use? More than 2/3.
Not every district offers AP classes, and how many of the districts actually offer AP US? I don't know that answer, and I don't think
And also,
anybody.
some other districts could have books that are more recent than the ones that Connecticut currently has in circulation. So they may not need to order this new book that 39 districts are using. They could have ordered a book from 4 years ago that's still up to date.
Well, like you guys once told me in April, you even said, see, this is where it gets dicey
I think we
again.
do that because you
can't
want to
say-
know.
You can't say, we shouldn't look at other districts, Jackie. Why are you looking at other districts? We want Connecticut to do better.
Yes, and I'm
So I
okay
want
with the book.
Connecticut to do better, so I don't care what 39 other districts are doing. Like you always say,
And I agree with you,
don't
but
look
you,
at the other
you
districts.
quite often
You're
ask
only
about the other
using it
districts.
because it works to your advantage. But
Your
again,
benefit.
I don't know that 39 districts out of that many, it's not even half.
Right, but as Ms. Poppy and Mr. Kassane pointed out, they looked at several books and none of them were written to the way that you'd like them to be written to, or that other people, that this is, like I said, the new way, and I don't know how else to describe it.
It's
that
not,
they're
I just
writing.
want to see history written as history. If history written as history, I was told by the highest educators in our district, as well as other districts, that book is opinionated. It is not written in a factual manner. We're hearing it's sensationalized, it's opinionated. The last 100 pages, and I don't know if you read them all clearly, but it hits 4 presidents and it hits them pretty hard. And I don't think it's right. I'm sorry. I could see parents and I could see students having a true issue. I would have an issue. It's people's opinions. It's not the fact of what went on
So
for all of those
I will
presidents.
say, when I read the book, and I apologize to all the history buffs out there, but I hated social studies in high school. It was so boring, so boring. And when I read this book, it captivated me. I wanted to keep reading. And I did ask Mr. Kassane and Ms. Poppy if this is the new way that they are trying to engage students. And they said that the social studies books nowadays are less dry and they try to bring in the students. So maybe this is the new way that social studies is being presented. These are used as guides by our teachers. So I have full faith in the teachers to present the material in a professional way.
This isn't about the teachers. The teachers who teach that class are exceptional.
No, they are. I'm just saying they're not using this book as a page turner.
Don't make it about the teachers. It's about the book's content. And it's about the highest educators in this district yesterday were telling me that, yes, Jackie, it is opinionated. Yes, Jackie, it does hit President Clinton pretty poorly. It does hit President Bush. It does hit President Trump. It does hit President Obama. And it's not the facts. It's opinionated. That is a problem with when you have a social studies class. Social studies shouldn't be opinion. It should be the facts of what went on. And if the facts are it's derogatory, then fine, but it should be the facts. And I was told by one of the highest educators in the district, no, Jackie, it's not exactly the facts. It's opinionated. And the same thing from Mr. Kassane, which I appreciated the honesty.
Are there opinionated questions on the exam?
So I think some of the questions on the exam are charging students with explaining their thoughts, right? So that's something that I think we've shifted toward universally in education, educating our students to take information, to evaluate information, to form an opinion, to form an argument, to form a claim about it, and then to defend their particular argument or claim. You know, to the sentiment of the process, I think it is important to note that there was an internal process here, right, that did involve the teachers who are teaching this course, who are delivering it on a daily basis. One of those teachers has been doing this work for over a dozen years within this course, has found the former version of this textbook to be useful to their instruction towards this course. And I know that the board shares wonderful feelings toward, this person's performance in terms of this particular course delivery. And so it's important to note that the sentiment around the text was that there was a recognition of the charged language, but that's where we place our trust and our confidence in the delivery in the classroom and the choice of specific segments of this text if the instructor chooses to use them in order to highlight particular historical periods, events, situations, conflicts, challenges, etc. So that's kind of where we landed. Look, there isn't a perfect volume out there. Because if there was one, we've been going through this process through the summer, I strongly believe that we would have presented something else to you that provides a more neutral and less charged stance, especially in more contemporary history. But the educators feel that this meets the needs of the course, meets the learning needs of Connecticut students, and will service everybody kind of moving into this AP exam and beyond into Regents preparation. So I just wanted to take just a second to highlight that process and those voices that were in the room throughout the process.
So let me piggyback what Ms. Napolitano is saying and connect it to what you're saying. You're speaking about a sacred trust. So we know the contemporary part is in question. We talked about opinions and sensationalized and the hook of interest. So whether it's for the assessment and for the AP or more geared towards those students who have to take the Regents exam, if there is a section that gets into, the Clinton administration or what have you, I believe there was a conversation about how the teachers, again, this ties into your sacred trust while addressing your point of concern, how the teachers would address how the text is presenting it and use that as a teachable moment to point out that this might be an opinionated or sensationalized viewpoint, and to help the students recognize that and promote that individualized, creative, critical thinking to be able to draw their own conclusions. So my understanding is that was addressed, and if you could just speak to that.
Absolutely. So that is part of the process, right? So we're evaluating text, we're evaluating documents, and students are asked to formulate, again, opinions, arguments, claims about what they're reading. And the teacher is there to guide that process for them. So if they are using that contemporary portion of the book instructionally, there is an opportunity for the teacher to talk about how the language kind of could influence a reader or an audience member, right? And what is that do for a student in terms of developing their own thoughts around the piece? Can we tease out the factual material against the language? It's as much a study in the use of language as it is the historical perspective, right? So that's where I was going in terms of being all-encompassing, in terms of teaching students how to think critically about what's presented to them. And this certainly would present that type of opportunity if the teacher chose to use particular portions of the textbook for different either lessons or units of study.
I think
Brian asked,
I'm sorry.
and I looked it up on College Board on the AP US History. It says, part of the test, you'll be presented with 7 documents that give various perspectives on a historical development or process. You'll be asked to develop and support an argument based on these documents and other evidence from your own knowledge. I mean, I could go on, but it just does give various opinions, perspectives.
I think an important part about this, and I think next time I'm going to raise my hand so I can get a word in, like I'm in class. But I think an important part about this is everybody kind of touched a little bit differently on this. That nowadays, I think authors, publishers, they tend to take the liberties of interjecting their opinions where they really shouldn't be. History is history. It should be factual. Ripping into any president is not okay. It doesn't matter where you stand, and it's not acceptable. We're talking about facts here. So I think a really big important part about this is that parents have to be involved. They have to really, really understand that their voices are important. And the conversations between the parents and the teachers should be welcome. That if a parent sees something in the book and wherever they stand, and it doesn't matter if they look at that and they say, I cannot believe how this ripped into President Obama, they have a right to go to the teacher and to talk about that and their concerns. Or if they say, I don't like how it ripped into President Trump, they have the same exact right to do that. So I think parents need to know that their voices should be heard if they see something, and that the teacher should be able to welcome that. And I believe that they will. I'm not saying they won't, but I think that's an important part. The parents have to understand that they shouldn't feel silenced if they see something they don't like. And it is very important that because of the nature of how things are now, that our teachers do learn how to navigate through that, to keep their opinions separate, keep it to the facts. And I believe that's a challenge. I don't think that's easy for our teachers because it's all over. It's around everyone, everywhere. So it's very hard. So I think it's our students should always feel that they can do that. They can speak up. They should never be judged for it. And the parents should also never be judged. They should never be ripped apart for how they are approaching a situation. So regardless of where this ends up, I think that's an important part of it, because we are faced with new challenges today where information is it's being presented opinionated. I mean, I have my own experience with collection development, and I understand the need to update nonfiction because things change. You have to add to it. But they do, it's just the way it is. Opinions seem to be more important than fact lately, which is kind of crazy. We're getting away from the true facts. So as long as we know, and I do believe that our teachers can navigate through that, I definitely do. And I want the parents to know that they absolutely have a voice. They should be welcome. They should never be afraid to use that voice.
Thank you so much. And I agree. Parents should definitely be involved in their children's education. Contractual obligations, Ms. Napolitano-Furno.
There was a question on social media that I brought to the attention of the board and superintendent in regards to lesson plans. There was something written years ago when I was first on the board about some sort of lesson plans were being worked out contractually. And I just wanted to give transparency to the community on what exactly that is that I'm thinking of, that I looked up, I can't find it anywhere, but I know that it was spoken about and it was a piece of contract, of being part of the contract and spoken about with lesson plans.
So I believe there was a board discussion several years ago.
Not a discussion, it was actually an action.
Yeah, and then the board took an action, and that led to a dialogue with the teachers, and then there was guidance given with regards to formal observations and lesson plans, and then I'm going to take this baton and give it to Mr. Golhifa so he could explain in further detail.
Thank you, Dr. Centimore. You are correct. The negotiations with the teachers union was about lesson planning. So I did send out a memo last year. I don't remember the exact date, but I sent out a memo to all the teaching staff to notify them that lesson plans were to be collected before every formal observation is conducted, and that's the practice that we've been living under.
Okay, so it wasn't lesson plans, because originally, I do know that originally I voted no. So I know the conversation was for lesson plans for, I guess, like other districts do continually. And I know that I voted no in public, and the reason that I gave was, because it was when I was first on the board, was my concern for higher administration in the buildings having to, whether it be a principal, APs, in elementary school, just a principal, having to do all of these lesson plans. But in now being on the board for the last 4 years, my opinion has since not so much changed, but I have seen that people have said to me, if you want to see oversight in the classroom, then sometimes you need to see lesson plans. Do other districts have just lesson plans? Because that's what it sounded like people were writing, that are teachers from other districts.
Well, I can tell you from my experience, other districts, there are districts that collect lesson plans weekly. I can't tell you what value they place in that. I can tell you that there's a value in what the administrators do and go into the classrooms and observe the lessons. But as a regular practice, to collect lesson plans on a weekly basis, a daily basis, whatever the case is, I don't know that we find too much value in that. And that's my opinion.
That's what I'm looking for. I like I said, I voted no years ago just because I thought that it would be difficult as an oversight for one person to oversee a bunch of people on a daily or weekly basis.
Right,
and
the
take
special
away
ed
from-
director has 100 or so teachers that she has to observe, and now to ask her to collect lesson plans on top of that doesn't really do anyone any.
No, and I appreciate that, because like I said, I was reading what other educators from other districts were saying, and I was unsure, because I'm not an educator, obviously, that when they were saying that they are for lesson plans, and they believe our district should have lesson plans on a weekly or daily basis for oversight. And I was like, oh, I guess if you're an educator, maybe you have more of a reason to have that opinion. So that's why I was asking from you guys what exactly is in our contract for it and how much value. My opinion has always been that I can hand you a lesson plan and say, hey, this is my lesson plan, and then go into a classroom and teach whatever I want. Not saying that's what people do, but I'm just playing devil's advocate.
The value is not in the lesson plan. The value is in the conversations that the administrators have with the teachers about these lessons. And that's where we feel we're the strongest.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board responsibilities and duties to our community, Ms. Napolitano-Furno.
So I had things on for board discussion, and then they don't show up. The lack of transparency in this board is unbelievable. I've sat on the board with now 4 different boards, and this is the least transparent board I've been on, and I hope it gets better. I hope people put more value into being transparent for the community members that have voted you in, the parents that have voted you in. My top discussion on my board discussions isn't on the agenda. Anonymous letters being read at board meetings. So that one is there because what value do we give to anyone reading anything from a third party? If we don't accept third-party emails, we don't accept third-party complaints, we don't accept third-party, because technically anybody could say that they're speaking on behalf of anybody else. And there's nothing to police what exactly the person's saying. Why would we encourage or stand by any anonymous reading of any letters, especially when we don't know if what's being read to us is factual, truthful?
So I actually removed that item from the board discussions for the simple reason that when people come up to the podium, they have 3 minutes to speak and say whatever they want on behalf of whomever they want. It is not up to us to police what they say, when they say it, or how they say it. So they have their 3 minutes. If they want to read an anonymous letter, then that's on them.
Okay, as long as we are letting it be known that we don't value anonymous letters. We don't accept anonymous letters. We don't do anything with anonymous letters. I've been on the board, this is my 5th year, and I've never been with the board that ever did anything with anonymous letters. As a matter of fact, anonymous emails, we used to not even get them, or anonymous letters, the first year before you were here, Jesse, because because we weren't allowed. We were told there's no value to them. There's nothing that you can do with anonymous. Anyone can write anything.
LifeVac, Ms. Napolitano-Furno.
After we had all of these exceptional, heroic measures by some of our aides and our staff, I had heard from some people from other districts and from some parents in regards to LifeVac. It was said that they wanted to know if there was a LifeVac in every school in case of choking. I was told that Life Back is giving one away to each school. All they have to do is apply on the site. Over 343 schools in New York State have them in their schools. So I sent that question to the superintendent and the board, trying to find out. I understand that our district doctor doesn't support it, but even so, people have asked, and I'd like to know if we looked into it.
Absolutely, and to your point, we recently had teaching assistants, teacher aides, with their Good Samaritan efforts, helping students who are choking. We recognized them at the previous board meeting. So for the public, if you've never heard of LifeVac, it's a device that can be used to help clear an airway if someone is choking. So we did, look into this, and one of the people that we rely on in terms of expertise and guidance is the school physician. And at this point, he is hesitant to give an endorsement because he doesn't have the research or the proven track record of how well this device works. And then in terms of reaching out and seeing across the island, what other municipalities do, it's really we've gotten a mixed bag. Nassau County, as I'm sure you're aware, their PD will carry this device. In Suffolk, the Suffolk EMS, Suffolk PD, they don't at this point. American Red Cross, American Heart Association, they have yet to endorse it. And again, their reasoning is kind of tied with our school physician about insufficient research and documentation. We also want to check with our insurance carrier, and at this point, they're not endorsing the device either. It just may be that it is so new and it's such a mixed bag that
343 schools carry them, and they're on Long Island. Some of the schools.
Some schools do, some schools don't.
Right, and like I said, I know from experience of actually using one that they do work. It's just that you have to be trained, and you have to be trained in it correctly. And like we were saying earlier today, I was completely taken back that our district doesn't train everyone on everything in our district. I was not too happy to hear that. I would like to hear that everyone is universally trained, and something like this should be universally trained. When I say that, I'm talking about even substitute teachers should be trained on everything in our district.
So in terms of choking, we did extensive training last year, which I think that, we saw the fruits of that labor earlier. We have a student services and security team that has availed themselves to go to buildings again this year to offer all kinds of training, Heimlich choking, first aid, CPR, stop the bleed, you name it. I think it's really that it's just a mixed bag. If the district wants to go in this direction, to your point, that there has to be extensive training. Our insurance provider, has that expectation. I would take more comfort if I saw Suffolk PD and Suffolk EMS. This is not a criticism. Again, I think this is because the device is fairly new and there's not that track record yet. There's nothing against this device necessarily. So, if the district wants to go in this direction, then we could certainly, look to take advantage of any free offerings. But that doesn't mean the training is free, and we'd have to bring in someone who is certified in the device to, be able to provide that training.
Okay, I would like it looked into if at all possible. I mean, parents are bringing it up, especially the special ed parents. I understand that, and I think it's something that we should look into. I don't think, and please don't take this the wrong way, I really don't care if Suffolk carries something in Nassau or Nassau carries something and Suffolk doesn't. I don't think because if you understand the police departments, it's just a matter of who gets grant money, who has the money, and what they're spending it on. It's kind of like saying that there are village police departments that have the top quality material and devices over all counties because they just have more money. It's all about who has the money, who can get the money, who can get money allocated for what. If all police departments were able to get them, I'm sure they would.
Thank you. Freshman awareness, Ms. Napolitano-Ferno.
I'd like an update on what's going on with the funding. I'm wanting an update on what's going on with the chaperone issue and what's going on with the issues that every year we seem to have with one of the best events that takes place, where we saw the upperclassmen that last year, myself, Marisol, and Jackie were all at. It was an incredible, and we've all said it was incredible, and I can't understand why there's such a lack of support for something that last year, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm told that over 200 students from the upperclassmen have volunteered, that there was a line out the door, right? And you know what? I think that's incredible. Last year, I pushed around a cart to give drinks to all the kids, and I said to them, I was there almost the whole entire night. I was all over the place that night, but I was trying to, I thought it was so beautiful to see all the kids, whether they were freshmen, whether they were juniors, whether they were seniors. It didn't matter what grade anyone was in. Everybody, we talk about kindness, we talk about being inclusive. It is the most inclusive night. I went into a hallway where kids were taking furries, the fuzzies, that's it. The fuzzies, warm fuzzies, and they were taking them out and they were tying them onto my thing. I thought it was just incredible. If it could make adults feel that special, the kids in the hallway were making each other feel special, and no one was left out. It was beautiful. I stress it. It makes me very sad and disheartened that we cannot get chaperones, funding. I mean, what do we need to do? Do we need to up a stipend? Do we need to make training? Do we need to do something? Because I want to know, what is the issue that we cannot get people for one of the best nights where the kids look the happiest and are having a blast?
So there is no funding issue whatsoever. There is ample funding, and then after this year, when we look at when it occurs this year, as we look at the budget development process, if anything needs to be adjusted for next year, then that gets put into the proposal for board consideration. So again, funding is not an issue. Support is not an issue. You have Board of Education support. You have superintendent, cabinet support. You have building administration, departmental across the board support. We recently had my monthly administrative council meeting, which has the administrators from across the district. The principal brought in one of the advisors to speak and present on the program. There was a recent faculty meeting just, I believe, last week, where the advisors spoke to the full high school faculty, and then it was reinforced by the high school principal and administration. So funding, check. Support, check. Volunteers, the upperclassmen, I think the number's around 270. All right, it's a huge number, and to your point, I think it's almost like a 1-to-1 ratio with the number of kids who have signed up. You have a commitment from the principal. From me, your superintendent, we'll stay the night. You know, we got to make waffles, whatever we got to do. But there is a challenge right now, and this is not a criticism. There is a challenge. The chaperone numbers are very light right now, and they are looking at it. It is a big commitment to do something that doesn't just end late; it goes into an overnight. And so, you know, everybody is circling the wagons and trying to garner that support. But right now, the chaperone numbers are light.
Thank you. Can you keep us aware of what's going on with that?
Absolutely.
I will definitely be there all night.
I will definitely be there also. Transportation, Ms. Inatelli.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly piggyback on Dr. Senamore. We did, have the Transportation Committee meeting. I just want to let the community know things that I myself did not realize. That there are, our upper transportation people, they follow every single bus to ensure safety for our children. I thought that was incredible. They follow, they make sure that, where's the best bus stop? Should they stop behind a stop sign, in front of a stop sign? Is this corner safe? Is it not? When they're substitute bus drivers, making sure that every single one of them every morning has the correct paperwork so they know who is taking a child off the bus, who is acceptable to take a child off the bus, knowing that ID is needed to make sure that the correct person is there. there's so many components that go into the day-to-day, and I just wanted to give them credit for the fact that they run this and our bus program and do all these things to keep our children safe. So, kudos to them.
Can I piggyback off her with transportation? I have a question for you, Mr. Hauser. Two different things, actually. I wanted to know if was there any situation today people were questioning about buses breaking down? Did we have a couple of buses that broke down today?
I'm not aware of any. That doesn't
Okay.
mean that we didn't have it, but I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Number two, if you could find out, I mean, I know of at least one, but then I was told later on that it was multiple. Just to make sure that, are our buses getting old? I know that we've had some issues where now we're talking about purchasing and all. I just want to make sure that our buses are in the best condition. I would love for us to speak to the mechanics to ask them what are their opinions on these buses and how much longevity is left in them, pretty much. The other thing I wanted to ask, and I don't know if I should ask it now or wait until we get to it, but it's about these trips that I'm seeing. I really want to know what bus company. On these permission slips, and this is really because of the current climate about what happened with the bus accident for Farmingdale, I would really like to know in the future when we are saying yes to this, I would like to know what bus company is going to be transporting our students. I think that it should be transparent for the community so that I do appreciate that we have a wonderful transportation department that actually looks these buses over too, thank God. And one of the reasons why I love that we have our own transportation, but I do want to know in the future on these, who is taking them on the trip? Like who is transporting? What bus company are we using? There's several trips here I see, and I just want to make sure that it should be transparent. So if anyone asks, we're able to answer.
So yes, we do absolutely have our mechanics inspect the buses. And is there a spot on the existing form, or do we need to revise the form on these field trips so that the company can be indicated?
There's a space to indicate what type of transportation is being used, but it's not necessarily required for the company to be named. Sometimes we do receive the name in the application process, and other times it's an indication that it's a charter.
So if we could, Ms. Poppy, if we could just add a spot, maybe it's right next to where it says contract transportation. Maybe if we could put maybe right there, company name, right? So if your office could look to modify this form and just disseminate it to principals and directors so that they're aware that, that's a reasonable request that we can
do that.
We could do in a timely fashion.
I'm sorry.
I appreciate that.
Just one other thing to make everybody aware. In addition to our own mechanics inspecting these private charter buses before they leave for a trip with our students and staff, we also get the New York State DOT driver's abstract.
Right.
So the driver who's driving that charter bus, we can see their history since they've had, in a sense, their CDL license. So we know, even from a driver perspective, that the students and staff are in good hands.
Bob, if I could just ask one question about these charter buses. Do you know if they have seatbelts or are the children required to use them?
I don't know that. I can find that out if they're required, if they have them and if they're required to use them. I'll find out.
Thank you.
Also, I wanted to see if you guys can give an update on the after-school late bus, that there were parents who were concerned about where that late bus is picking kids up at the high school, primarily the sports kids, saying that it was it was a situation where the sports exit is and where the current pickup is all the way around in. Yeah, it looks, I have
I
the
think
picture
they
here.
were gonna have Mr. Mallory look into moving yeah, go ahead.
So the particular parent that reached out, we did immediately have multiple people reach out to the parent to explain. Not everything might have been the way it was reported, and so it really did require a detailed response. And so we tried to do that immediately. I think this is several weeks ago. I think it was within a day or two. We had Mr. Flynn, Mr. Mallory. Both reach out to the parent, and sometimes it's like a phone tag in terms of that, but it did require a detailed explanation. And certainly, I know he's here, and I'll put him on the spot. Mr. Flynn, if you wouldn't mind, and I can refresh your memory as to whom, if you wouldn't mind, just you yourself, one person will suffice. If you could reach out to that parent, maybe tomorrow, and just explain. Because they did take the time to put a detailed response, and I know you and Mr. Mallory were prepared to give a detailed explanation, but if you wouldn't mind tomorrow also reaching out again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will now open the floor for the first public comment portion of the agenda. This is for the consent agenda items only. There will be an additional public comment period later on in the evening. Please raise your hand if you have a question or comment on a consent agenda item. Great. So can I call for a motion and a second to approve the instructional and non-instructional personnel items as presented?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
I have a questions.
Oh, sorry.
Jesse, is this gonna be the portion I have the questions on? It's for AI K4, AI K11? I'm thinking, is that the next? Okay,
This is personnel. You're just thinking consent.
yeah, I have it pulled out, that's why. So mine is for the next.
Okay, so no further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Can I get a motion and a second to approve items 2 through 12 of the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second, but I have questions.
Yeah. Any questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question about AI K4. I wanted to just understand why aren't we, is there a reason why we are not allocating money or more money for coaches if they're looking for donations? I'm not against getting donations, obviously, but I am for making sure, why would the district not look into purchasing these items for the coaches as well? Or are these items that the coach themselves
Are you
wants?
referring to number 4?
Yes,
Okay, thank
K4. Is this something specific that a coach wants? Or is this something that we should be allocating money also to put aside for these items? Like, are there things that coaches need that we're not allocating enough money for, is I guess the question.
I haven't received any feedback that there are lacks of allocations for supplies, equipment that's needed per se. That's part of your question here.
Yeah, can you maybe send something out and ask to find out if there are items that coaches would like to get, and just because they don't maybe get the donations, if there's something that we need to allocate for next year to increase something, if it means that it helps our students and helps them coach.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's part of the budget development process with, whether it's a building administration team or director of any kind of department, physical education, health, athletics, what have you. As someone who back in the day coached, there's the things that you absolutely must have and you really need to budget for them. Some of the things occur every few years, some of them are annual. And then there's those components that would be really nice to have. And that's oftentimes when boosters will get involved, when you look at things that have become enhancements. You could not just get by, but you could succeed without. But then if you have them, it really adds a nice piece to it. But in terms of the budget development process, that's part of what happens. Mr. Mallory will speak with his teachers and his coaches. What do you need? And then that's gets considered.
And this is a donation from the Thunderbird Coaches Association, which, from my understanding, is a group of all the coaches that do fundraising for different things. And then when they need something that's above and beyond, then they get donations from their fundraising.
Any other questions?
I actually have a question about 8, the textbook excess at Slocum. And I just wanted to know, there are a lot of books on here, and a lot of books that I know are kind of popular to kids, Diary of a Wimpy Kid. What is the process for, and I know this was from a while ago, I think it was from 2000, was it 21? But what is the weeding process that they do? Like, because this is an extensive list of books that are being gotten rid of, and I'm a librarian, and getting rid of books kind of, I like to see them on the shelf. So what, these are some very popular books that I know, a lot of the kids like to read, some of them. So what is the process for getting rid of these and a list that is this extensive?
Especially at the elementary level, we have an ongoing process of evaluation of our collections, whether it's a classroom library, whether it's our book room, and of course, within our library media centers, with which I know you're very familiar in terms of maintaining the collection. So typically in the buildings, there are specific teachers who care for the collections, and they make recommendations based upon wear and tear. It's that same conversation that we were having about the social studies texts, or if we have onboarded new materials that are going to replace what is there currently. The space is a premium, believe it or not, in our buildings, right? So we attempt to keep everything current and not hold on to materials that are no longer used or no longer can be used. And so it's an ongoing process that's typically initiated by that caretaker, whomever he or she is in the building. It's a reading teacher, it's the library media specialist, it's another individual who has that particular assignment or duty. And that process is then brought through the principal, who signs off on the materials. They, of course, look at the materials, assess them for themselves. A departmental director is typically involved as well, and that individual will make a trip to the elementary school or to the middle school or to the high school to review the materials and assess their condition for themselves. They sign off, and then it's sent to my office.
So in the case with some of the, like the popular titles, like I mentioned, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, something like that would be more or less weeded for condition, and then a replacement. So this doesn't account for anything that's replaced at all. This is obviously books that are being removed, but this doesn't mean that it's not getting replaced.
Correct. It does not mean that it's not getting replaced. It means that we're moving it out to make room for more, other, newer, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have another question about K11, and I would have sent this earlier, but for some reason, I don't know why, I didn't see OBMS. I thought that this was the high school. I thought this was a high school trip,
This is
and I'm noticing,
This is K10, because I did remove,
oh, my apologies, okay. So K10, it's the field trip, and I just gotta ask this because I know it's gonna be asked by others. Is this a trip that is solely OBMS? Does our other secondary middle school RMS not take this trip? Because this is the trip to a college in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and Dorney Park. It's a festival performance, and it looks like a big trip. A total of 256 people, number of students 226, number of adults 30. I'm just trying to understand. We always talk about equity across district. I'm hoping that if OBMS is taking this trip with all of their musicians, that RMS is doing something as well.
I will find out what the comparable trip is on the RMS side and provide that information to you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. I will now open the floor to the open public comment portion of the agenda. I will call individuals forward one at a time. Please wait for my acknowledgement before stepping to the podium. You should have received the number card from security on your way in. If you have not, please see a security guard in the back of the room. Any person wishing to address the board shall address the board president. Comments should be kept as brief as possible and relate to school matters only. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes for one or more topics. Individual employees, parents, or children should not be identified by name, title, position, grade, or building. The use of foul language and threatening comments will not be tolerated, and the board will consider a recess until order is restored. In accordance with Policy 1230, public comment will not exceed 30 minutes. If there are additional persons wishing to speak, the board may consider a motion to extend the time. Number 1.
Good evening. All our buses carry external cameras which are activated when the red lights are flashing and the stop signs are out. And anyone that passes the bus at that time, a picture is taken and they get a ticket, I believe, which is returned to the county. And they're expensive tickets. It was my curiosity, do we get any money from those tickets? Or what percentage do we get from the tickets?
So the simple answer is yes, but then I'll say, Bob, could you speak in a little bit more detail with that?
Sure. Yep. So the county recently started a program to share, I'll say, some of those $250 individual violations throughout the state. So they have a program now to share with each school district based on the amount of tickets that occur or violations that occur within the school district. Last year, we received about $28,000. We had to sign a contract with the county that specifically lays out how the monies can be spent, mainly for educational purposes. It's very specific. And then recently, we received the second round. I believe it was around $33,000 from the county. And there's one more round that will come. It's a 3-year program, as we understand right now. So we are working amongst the administration right now to come up with an educational plan to spend those monies in accordance with the contract. You're welcome.
I would ask the question the evening that you were in attendance. As was also asked tonight, these buses that we hire for over the road, whether or not they have seatbelts. I believe they do. I believe they do. And fatalities occur when you leave a vehicle. That's what happened in Farmingdale. I also wanted to know if we could have students, when they're on these trips out of the state, use the seatbelts. I don't expect it on our local trips. When they go out with these hired buses, can they be made to use seatbelts?
We will certainly look into that.
That's the answer you gave me last time.
Well, I did look into the seatbelts. We don't have the answer yet, but we will
I
look
think they
into,
do.
we will look into making them
Thank you.
or asking them to.
Okay, I'm watching the time. I shall return.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night. Number 2.
Hi, so first I want to say that as someone who has talked about BOCES and advocated for BOCES, both at board meetings and to administrators over the years, I really appreciate all that has come up about BOCES in the last few board meetings. I would also like to say that in respect to the textbooks, there are some times that there's fact that verges on opinion. I mean, Clinton was impeached because he committed perjury about having sexual intercourse with a woman who is not his wife. That's fact, that's not opinion. What is opinion is that, yes, sometimes our presidents are also crap human beings. It's okay to say that, right? The other thing that I wanted to talk about is there was a lot tonight and last meeting about what parents are aware of inside classrooms. My son graduated in June. Before he graduated, I went to every back-to-school night. I got every syllabus. I got every reading list. I walked out of classrooms with an email address and phone number to contact the teacher if I had any questions. I spoke to the teachers afterwards to open dialogue and say, hi, this is who I am, this is who my kid is. If you want to talk to me about anything, I'm here. The teachers are very open about things, and they welcome conversations from parents. I understand that there are some parents who email board members say, oh, this happened in my kid's classroom this day. On the other side of the coin, there are parents who go to these things, who are aware of these things, who do know that that dialogue is open to them to go to teachers. It's not just, oh God, something happened, let me go to a board member. And I use that opportunity when needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Number 3.
Good evening. Just to piggyback, as a mom of a student that is in the high school taking exams, I do encourage her to express her opinion and to have opinions and to be open to hearing things, because as a teacher, authors write for 3 reasons: to inform, to educate, or to give an opinion. So part of their education is learning to distinguish between the 3 and having that dialogue about what is fact and what is an opinion. So I am grateful that my children have had that opportunity to have those conversations. My next point would be about the transportation. Can somebody tell me what the maximum number of students or people are on a bus? Does anybody know that? I don't know.
I'm just going to let you finish, and then we'll circle
Okay, so
back
I'd like to know how many students are allowed on a bus, and is that different for kindergartners as opposed to high school kids? I would also like to know what is the situation if at dismissal time for any bus, a 2 p.m. bus, a 3 p.m. bus, if there's an overabundance of students getting on those buses. Are we allowing students to sit 3 in a chair and children in the aisle with the bus moving and doing the drop-offs? And at what point do we have an obligation, or do the bus drivers have an obligation to say this is not safe, there are too many kids, and what do they do at that point? That's my question.
So you're asking if there's an overfill in the buses?
Well, what do we do in that situation? Yes.
Right. Mr. Hauser, do you?
I will find out for you.
Okay, I'm going to share with you that there has been situations recently where there have been many students on a bus. Yes, I know it's between sports seasons, so kids are getting on a bus that they wouldn't normally because they might be at practice, where kids have been sitting in the aisle of the bus while it's doing its drop-offs, where kids have literally climbed over kids to get off the bus, which at some point kids have then had to get off the bus, so the kids that needed to exit the bus were able to do so, and then they had to get back on the bus.
High school?
High school, yes. But otherwise, I think transportation is great. They've accommodated me for 12 years now. They've made arrangements for daycare drop-offs. They've made arrangements when my kids have missed buses to, come back and swing around and pick them up. I think they're doing a wonderful job. It's not an easy job. I give them lots of props for getting everybody to where they need to be on time. But again, we're talking about safety. There has to be a number. And what do we do in that situation? Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. We will look at bus capacity. Thank you. Mr. Hauser, if you could just look into that.
I will.
Number 4.
I had a question, the great textbook debate. I know we have the curriculum committee. Does the curriculum committee also take part in the textbook oversight, I guess would be my question. I know we'll wait till the end. Just because I'm wondering if there was like a simpler way, because even I'm sitting here and I'm like, I want to know what this book is. Like, I want to go look. Like, I'm so interested in this last 100 pages right now, not for any reason other than like, it kind of sounds like entertaining, which we love a good entertaining social studies moment. I personally liked social studies and English, hated science and math, I'm sorry. But the other thing that I did just want to mention, and it kind of piggybacks off of what somebody else was just saying, I saw a lot, like social media, everything's on social media now. Chain of command. So I like went through our website and I found that we have like a giant graphic for chain of command, and like, for example, curriculum and stuff like that. It's like school counselor, teacher, department director, building principal, Christina Poppy, Dr. Senimore, and then if every single one of those people didn't go, then you email the board. And I feel like some of the division in the community right now stems from people feeling like if they're not close with one person, they're not going to get an answer, or if they are close with this person, they're going to get the answer they want on the board. And like, I would just like to see like the bickering over things that are probably like really simple solutions stop, because they get so blown out of proportion. So I'm just wondering, because I do understand that like we as a community elect our board, so we want to be able to turn to that board. But what are we doing as a district to stop some of that division and making sure that everybody does feel like they're heard the same way as everybody else if they reach out?
Thank you. So I will let Ms. Poppy answer the curriculum committee question, if that's okay. I know that we discuss curriculum. I know we don't discuss the particulars of the classroom within that committee, but
And I want to thank you for the opportunity, because shortly, if you were a member of the curriculum committee last year, if you participated, I will be sending out an invitation for our first meeting. It will likely take place in November, so be on the lookout for that. Of course, everyone is welcome to join. If you didn't have an opportunity to do so last year, you can reach out to me to find out details, and we'll update the website as well. We do have a place on the website in terms of when our meetings are taking place. In terms of the purview of the committee related to textbooks, it just hasn't been a discussion item for us just yet. Perhaps it would come up as a topic this year, but it wasn't in our experience last year. And so, really these recommendations are generated through the teachers and through the committee that I mentioned before. It's an internal textbook committee that's formed when there's a particular need. So we have particular constituents of that committee.
And what I'd like to do is kind of speak to your point about chain of command. So listen, new kid on the block since July. I can't speak to history, culture prior to me coming. So I'm going to take this as an opportunity to encourage everyone to tap into that chain of command. You have a question, a concern, reach out to that counselor or that teacher. Certainly if it's something that really goes to a higher type of level of concern, I understand you might go to a department director, an assistant principal, or a principal. Something that's very high, maybe it needs to come up to central office. And we certainly have a Board of Education, even though they're volunteers, they are elected officials here to serve the community. But that chain of command is a great guide for our parents and our community to tap into it. And so, this is my first opportunity to publicly speak to it. And I have full faith in each level of our, employees, from the people in the trenches, the counselors and the teachers and what have you, to the building level, department level, to the central office level prior to the Board of Education, and obviously me, where the buck stops as well. So thank you for referencing the chain of command, and I do endorse it.
I'm going to also piggyback on you. I think that people need to realize that it's not about any one board member. Anyone can email any of us. Our emails are they're all public knowledge, and anyone can reach out to just one of us if they feel comfortable. Especially, I will never turn a parent away that has an issue and feels like they're not being heard. Any parent, any student that wants to email me personally, I'm only speaking on behalf of myself, but I will never turn them away. and I was elected to not turn them away. Giving them the chain of command is a guide, and guides are just that, guides. But if someone has a problem, and I mean, we had a parent here speak last time about an anonymous letter from their student. People don't want to be known. People want to be anonymous. People are afraid of retribution or
It's got nothing
retaliation.
to do with what I said, but I think it would be on the responsibility of the board, is my point, to not turn a parent away, because I think to try to bring us to some point of like everyone feeling like they're on the same playing field, being like, I hear you, I understand you, I will stay on top of your concern, but you really need to go in this order, was more my point. Like, not turn it, I'm not saying don't be like, here's the link to the picture of the chain of command, bye.
Not everybody is going to feel comfortable talking to 5 people. I can tell you this. Everyone on this board knows, and they know this for sure, I get a ton of private emails because people know I will never give anyone up. I will never give up a source, and they trust that. And I'm sorry if it makes other people uncomfortable or they don't like it, but they have the opportunity, the same opportunity, to email April, Jackie D, myself, Marisol, Brian, or all of us together.
Or the
They
school
have that.
counselor.
They can absolutely
That would
do
all
that,
be
but
one
when
person
parents-
before they get to
when
5.
parents
That's
want
my
to
point.
speak to-
Thank you very much
when
for your
parents
response,
want to
though. I
speak
appreciate
to-
Thank you, I appreciate
One of
it.
us, I would be more
Number
than
5.
happy to listen to them. That's called being transparent, being available, and that's what I'm always gonna be.
And I think one last thing it's important to remember is that while the chain of command, of course it's preferable, it's not law. It's not something that parents have to do. And I think we have to respect parents' decisions if they don't want to go to the chain of command. I don't think any one of us up here should criticize any parents or any community members if they decide they're not comfortable going through it. While it is preferable, and I will always tell people, you can do that, but I too would never turn someone away. And I think it's important for us as trustees, as representatives of the community, to respect a parent who chooses to not use the chain of command and not to say, well, you have to follow this, it's not working, it's not fair. That's their choice, and I think we have to
Thank you.
respect
Number
everyone.
5, go ahead.
Thank you.
I think there's a button on the bottom.
Yes, there is. Okay, thank you. I spoke at the last board meeting in order to express a concern about the chain of command not being followed and curriculum matter, how that impacted the students' education. I was hoping to not have to be here again, but the next morning I started getting messages from community members letting me know that I was doxxed on 3 different Facebook pages designed for Connecticut community members, with at least one of those pages having one of your board members as an administrator. A large photo of me was posted, my workplace, some addresses that preceded my move to Connecticut a few years back when, yes, I have 3 children in the district and I am a resident here. I've been so happy about so many things, but this is a very big problem. My children were getting screenshots from their friends. We were getting messages from their parents asking what was going on. Your board member was engaging on these posts and making statements after some kind strangers in the community came in and said, this was easy to prove that this woman is a resident with a quick Google search. Thank you to those kind neighbors if you're watching. Your board member continued to say things like, to find out that people come in and state they are reading their child's letter to the BOE, to find out today that was all a lie is very disheartening and disappointing. Another statement from the board member included, it just makes it look like a parent and student complained last night when this is neither a parent in our district or a resident to the Connecticut School District. I am a parent, I do have 3 children in the district, and I think that based on the vibe in some of these meetings that I've observed, it's quite understandable that a student who wants to have a stake in their education might not be comfortable coming up here and speaking with you. I don't believe that that student's teacher was an option because the teacher had also had the board come in and impact the situation. Comments speculating about my identity were rampant. I never did say that the student who sent the message along was my child. I said that they were a student and that I had 3 children. But the point being that by attempting to defame me, your board member effectively punished the student whose statement I shared for desiring to have a stake in their education. I am so happy with so many things about this district, but that is absolutely unacceptable, and I need to ask for your help, Ms. Mallon. I'm not sure of protocol. I don't know if you can call for a vote. My request, without working knowledge of how these matters go, would be that the board would vote that anybody who holds a position on the board, holds authority, or is administrator in the district should not retaliate against a parent for expressing concern about their child's education, and particularly when a child has asked to have a stake in their own education. Thank you.
I am sorry that this
Thank
situation
you.
did happen to you. I apologize, and that's all I can do at this given time. I'm just really sorry.
Thank you.
Number 6.
Hi. I have a few comments to make on a couple of issues. One about the AP textbook, the other about CRT, and the other about this district not following the policies of state ed on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So first, all presidents, not all presidents, many presidents do negative things. They are facts. But in this day and age, those negative facts, someone else will call an opinion. So I have concerns about the judgment about that textbook, and I would love to have seen it in the curriculum committee, so a variety of us could take a look at it. Okay, second, critical race theory is the college level examination of institutional racism. It is not about a kindergarten teacher's choice of crayons. So building on that, Connecticut School District Policy 2000, Governance and Operations, School Board Powers and Duties, state that the first important duty is to observe and enforce state laws and regulations pertaining to education. Next, State Ed put out this statement. The New York State Constitution authorizes the Board of Regents to oversee the general supervision of all educational activities within the state. The Regents exercises their authority in various ways, including by promoting rules and regulations, adopting student learning standards, establishing academic and graduation reinforcements, and providing guidance and best practices to the field. The board may also exercise its authority by adopting policy positions on issues of significant educational and societal appointments. That's from State Ed. On August 9th, you all should have received a letter from Letitia James and Dr. Betty DeRosa. It was given to all school districts. And I'm just going to read the first paragraph. The New York State Office of the Attorney General and the New York State Board of Regents want to inform local education agencies, meaning school districts, of their obligation to place dignity, inclusion, and respect at the center of their educational decisions. These principles embodied in law are the wellspring from which sound decisions of educational policy flow. Through this joint guidance, the Office of the Attorney General and State Ed reaffirm New York's commitment to ensuring that all students have full educational opportunity by supporting school districts' development and implementation of policies and practice that advance the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I believe you neglected your duty by not following these policies and directives. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your concerns. Number 7.
I think I left this here last week. How scary is that? I'm not kidding.
It's yours.
It really is. So I have a question. It's kind of a general question. I know with coaching, if someone if it goes like the kind of first right of refusal for our teachers are given the opportunity to say yes or no, whether they want to do it, coach a team or whatever. And then if there's no one inside in district that wants to do it, it's then essentially farmed out, right? Does it work that way with getting chaperones? So it's my question along with as like a part one, part two. With school trips and the event that you guys were talking about, are the stipends directly proportionate to the time outside of school? So let's say they get a little bit more money if it's over 2 or 3 days, like a school trip and or just an overnight. And I happen to know that obviously there are aides that are fit to work in our buildings and watch our kids, that they haven't been offered these, some of them really great stipends to do these trips and or, do you know what I'm saying? And or chaperoning. I'm wondering if we don't have these people doing this, saying, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do the Frost Valley. I know I'm harping, but the kids are missing out. DC trips. Why aren't these, and we have, you're volunteering, other board members are volunteering, you have other people volunteering. Why aren't you paying big stipends to the aides? Because I know a lot of them want that money. And how much are they? Like, is it directly proportionate? I don't know who I asked that question.
Yeah, I was just gonna let you finish your thoughts and then we were.
That's it.
That was your only question? I don't,
Can I answer?
absolutely.
Chaperoning events have to be posted to the CTA, the teachers first. After the teachers, we go through all our teacher volunteers, they get a stipend of $73.03, and I know that because I looked it up today, for events that last up to 6 hours. Anything after 6 hours, they get paid for a double event. If a teacher does not want it, then it gets reposted for everyone in the district. In the past, we have posted for freshman awareness and other items for aides and TAs and still have not gotten volunteers.
Okay, well, thanks for answering that question, but, I've already talked to a handful of aides, and they're like, it really hasn't come to us. And I hear what you're saying, I hear what you're
It has been posted
saying.
everywhere.
I hear what you're saying.
And if they want to do it now, I'm happy to take their requests.
I think there might be an element of intimidation, doing something, now, just bear with me, I know you don't want to acknowledge that, but there is a certain amount of intimidation coming from a teacher, and if they don't want these functions, and then they're gonna be asked to do things. And I'll give you a perfect example. I keep harping and going back to those school trips, okay? Those school trips should be a given, okay? And they're not. We're all waiting for the teachers to put these school trips forth, okay? And it's just not happening, okay? So that, I think, is where the directors and or the administrators need to do that if they don't want these huge stipends for staying 5 days and or more than 24 hours, like say DC, then we put it out. There are people that will take it. I mean, and you have to understand, these aides are kind of looked down on. So that might be why they're kind of hesitant to do that. Just saying.
Thank you. Any aides out there that want to chaperone freshman awareness, please call Mr. Kohler-Heifer. Yes. Number 8.
Hello again. As you guys, I'm sure, have known from me or heard from me, I'm the president of Model UN. It was the thing I was mentioning before. We are having a Applebee's fundraiser, so I would like to invite the board to have a nice lunch with the community and just show support. So I'm giving you each a ticket. And Jackie, back to what I was saying, the book drive is still going on. All the way to November 1st, there's still a box in the Connecticut Public Library to drop off donations. And there's a box in the main office in room 204. So as of now, from the VP, it is still happening. No problem. So
Thank
here are
you.
your tickets.
Thank you so much.
What's the date of the event again?
November 12th. Thank you so much. That is so very nice.
Please contact me if you
not go, because as of now, you all are go.
You give me one. Number 9, please.
Aww. That's so nice. Good job, April.
Hey kids, stick around. We're gonna, after the meeting, we're gonna, yeah, we'll pay you for this.
Don't go anywhere.
So stick around, don't you know?
Yeah, right. Number. Press the button.
All right. So I want to talk to you about Awareness Evening. I was involved with that from the inception years ago, many years ago, and that was with Chris Latella and Mr. Murtha, and it was at Ronkonkoma Junior High. It was fabulous. This problem that they're having now, getting people to stay overnight, it's about solidarity. Whether you all want to know it or not, it is. And years ago, there was no stipend. People did it because they wanted to. I did it. I slept over on an air mattress that flattened out real quick through the night, sleeping on my back. I think I have 2 lumbar disc issues right now because of that. But I never got paid. No one got paid. Not even the people that ran it got paid. And it's really about solidarity and the fact that, you know, if people want to do this, they're going to do it. Then they don't need to be coaxed, convinced, given money to do it. So I did it for about 11 years. And then when it came to the high school, I did it with one of the advisors that's doing it now. And I can't mention any names, but if you talk about solidarity, I think that, and I'll put it in a nice way, that the teachers or the people that you want to chaperone that are not stepping forward, I think that they are showing their solidarity, and that's my opinion, and they're not going to get the chaperones. And this event may not happen, so be prepared, because it's a huge, huge event. If anybody hasn't, you know, ever witnessed it or stayed for it, you really should talk to people that have been there and that have done it, witnessed the warm fuzzies, you know, everybody going back and forth. It's wonderful. But again, my opinion is that people are standing in solidarity right now, and they're not going to do things for people that they don't want to do it for. And that's where I'm going to leave this.
Thank you. I do find it a little disheartening to hear because it is such a great event. I know my daughter is looking forward to she's not chaperoning, but she is volunteering. But it really is a great event, and it is for the kids. So that does make me sad to hear that. But thank you. Okay, can I get a motion and a second to adjourn our Board of Ed meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye, have a good night.